11 engineers stood around the car in the climate-controlled bay of the Crescendo Motorsport facility when Ethan Cole walked in. The Lamborghini Huracan GT3 EVO had been dead for 11 days. $800,000 in diagnostic equipment, 3 specialists flown in from Sant'Agata Bolognese, and not one of them had found the fault. The car just sat there, silent, under the lights, as though it had decided. Then the loading dock door opened, and a man in a gray work shirt came through carrying a tool bag in one hand and a 6-year-old girl clutching a stuffed rabbit in the other. Someone laughed. Ethan put his daughter down, told her to stay near the bench, and walked to the car. He did not introduce himself. He did not look at the 11 engineers. He crouched beside the left rear quarter panel, placed 2 fingers against the body behind the wheel arch, and closed his eyes for 3 seconds. Then he said, quietly enough that only the nearest engineer heard, "The GDI timing module lost its ground reference. Secondary harness. Pin 17. He stood, opened his bag, and had the car running in 7 minutes. Nobody said anything for a long time after that. Not even Renata Vasquez, who had ordered him removed from this building 4 hours earlier. Ethan Cole was 34 years old and had the particular quality of a man who had been carrying something heavy for long enough that he no longer thought about the weight. He woke at 5:40 every morning in a 2-bedroom apartment on the 14th floor of a building 3 miles from the Crescendo facility. He made 2 cups of coffee, drank 1, left the other on the counter for a reason that had become purely ceremonial. His daughter Mia was 6, and she slept with a stuffed rabbit she called Spark, named after the first word her mother had taught her to say in the garage, back when there had still been a mother to teach her things. Claire had died 22 months ago. A highway accident in November, on the kind of road where accidents shouldn't happen. Mia had been 3 years old. Ethan had been in a diagnostic session in Modena when his phone lit up with the number he would have given anything not to recognize. He was home in 16 hours and out of his position at the Sant'Agata facility within 60 days. He did not explain to anyone why he left. He found work at Crescendo as a general workshop mechanic. It paid enough. Mia had what she needed. He stopped explaining things he did not need to explain. Crescendo Motorsport occupied a converted aircraft hangar on the eastern edge of the industrial corridor. Renata Vasquez had inherited it 13 months ago at 31, following her father's sudden retirement due to a cardiac event. She was sharp, well-organized, and had spent 4 years in investment consulting, building a credibility that no one in the motorsport world had initially offered her. She wore the pressure of succession like a second jacket, and she made decisions at a speed that made people feel reassured and occasionally uneasy in equal measure. The Huracan had been the centerpiece of their upcoming championship entry. When it died in the paddock at a pre-season shakedown, she had made 11 phone calls in 40 minutes. The specialists arrived the next morning. 11 days later, she had spent $800,000 and the car still would not start. Her workshop chief, a man named Sal Ferretti, who had been on the floor since before Renata could drive, had said exactly one thing to her on the 4th day. He looked at the car and then looked at her and said, "There's a man on level 2 who knows this engine." She looked at the specialist's credentials arranged on her desk and said, "Thank you, Sal." That had been the end of the conversation. On the morning of the 11th day, Ethan arrived at 6:15 with Mia because the school pickup schedule had broken down, and Grace, the neighbor who watched her when things went wrong, was not answering. He signed them both in at the service entrance. Mia sat on the low bench near the parts storage with Spark propped against her knee and a coloring book open in her lap. At 7:30, Ethan walked past the upper bay on his way to the basement level. He did not stop walking, but he looked at the car through the bay window for 2 full seconds. The angle of the rear diffuser, the way the harness conduit was routed along the firewall, the specific model year of the GDI timing assembly visible from the angle he was standing at. He kept walking. He went downstairs and did his assigned work. At 11 o'clock, Sal appeared at the basement level door. He said nothing. He looked at Ethan for a moment and then looked at the ceiling in the direction of the upper bay. Then he went back upstairs. Ethan finished the brake service he was working on. He packed his tools with the particular care of a man who is deciding something. Then he picked up his tool bag and went up. He had been working for 4 minutes when Renata Vasquez came into the bay. She saw him immediately. A mechanic from the lower level crouched behind the rear wheel arch of the $340,000 prototype with a multimeter and a wiring schematic he had drawn from memory on a piece of shop paper. Mia was still on the bench at the far end of the bay, now watching with the focused attention of a child who understood that her father was doing something important. Renata looked at the three specialists standing near the front of the car, then at Ethan, then at the schematic in his hand. "Who authorized this?" she said. Ethan stood. "The GDI timing module has lost its ground reference. The secondary harness at pin 17 has a microfracture in the shielding. It only opens under thermal load and then closes again when the engine cools. Every diagnostic tool you've run checks the module. None of them check the ground path." Renata looked at him for a long moment. Behind her, one of the imported specialists cleared his throat. "This is a restricted asset under active diagnosis," she said. "You don't have clearance for this vehicle. I can fix it in 3 minutes." "That's not the point." She looked at Sal, who had appeared at the bay door and was standing with his arms crossed and his face arranged carefully. "Sal, escort him out. HR will process the release today." Mia appeared from the bench. She walked to the edge of the working area and looked at Renata with the evaluative calm of a 6-year-old making a judgment. "Is my dad in trouble?" she asked. "Go back to the bench, sweetheart," Ethan said. He collected his schematic, placed it folded on the workbench surface, and walked out. He did not look at the car again. Mia came after him with Spark under one arm, and they walked to the service exit together, and nobody in that bay said anything until the door had closed. The car did not start that afternoon. It did not start the following morning. The third specialist, who had flown in from a factory partner facility in Germany, ran a full harness continuity test using equipment that arrived the same day. Found nothing. Renata stood at the window of her office on the second floor at 9:15 p.m. The car was still under lights. 2 engineers still working. The championship entry deadline was in 6 days. She found the schematic on the workbench at 9:47, the shop paper, the handwritten diagram. She read it once. Then she looked at the specific notation beside pin 17. Microfracture, GXR-18 shielding alloy, thermal cycling failure. Opens at 94 degrees Celsius operating temp. Closes at rest. Standard diagnostics run at ambient, will not appear on static test. She looked at the notation for a long time, then she looked at the car. She called Sal. "The man from level 2, she said. "Who is he?" Sal was quiet for a moment. "You should probably ask him that yourself," he said. The address in the HR file was 3 miles west. Renata drove herself, which she had not done for most of the past year. She knocked at 10:22 p.m. A pause. Then the door opened, and a small person in pajamas looked up at her with Spark tucked under one arm. The rabbit was missing a button eye. "Is your father home?" Renata said. Mia studied her for 2 seconds. "Dad doesn't like people who come after bedtime," she said. "But he's still awake." Ethan was at the kitchen table with a cup of tea and a manual open in front of him. The apartment was small and clean. A row of children's drawings covered the wall above the couch. On the kitchen shelf, between a spare phone charger and a jar of colored pencils, sat a small laminated badge with Italian text and a factory logo that Renata recognized without any difficulty. She sat across from him without being invited. She placed the schematic on the table between them. "You worked in Santa Agata," she said. "Yes." "You designed GDI systems." "Among other things." She looked at the badge on the shelf. "Why didn't you say anything?" "You didn't ask anything," he said. "You asked me to leave." A pause. The apartment was quiet. From down the hall, Mia's voice, small and half asleep. "Dad, is she staying?" "No," Ethan said. "Okay. A beat. She has a nice coat." Renata looked at the schematic. She looked at the badge. She looked at the man across the table who had told her in 30 seconds what $800,000 and 11 days had not produced. "I'm sorry," she said. "I made a decision this morning based on what I thought I was looking at. I should have stopped. I need your help." Ethan turned his cup once in his hands. "The championship entry," he said. 6 days. He looked at the schematic on the table. Something settled in his expression. "I'll come in at 6, he said. Not for the job. If the harness isn't replaced correctly, that car fails at speed. The driver is 26 years old. He paused. That's the reason. He had the car running at 7:14 the following morning. The repair itself took 9 minutes, 17 if you counted the post-repair thermal cycle test that nobody had included in the original diagnostic protocol. Ethan included it. The three specialists watched from the bay entrance. When the engine came to life and the telemetry board turned from red to green, the room made no sound at all for approximately 4 seconds. Then it made the sound of 12 people exhaling at the same moment. Renata was standing at the front of the car. She watched Ethan run the idle check, read the GDI pressure figures, write the output in the same shop paper notebook, and pack his tools with the same methodical care he'd had on the day she fired him. He did not look at the specialists. He zipped the bag, stood, and said to no one in particular, "Pin 17, add it to the maintenance protocol." Then he looked at Renata once. She said, "Engineering director, it's yours if you want it." He was quiet. "Sal's been here a long time," he said. "Whatever the title is, he should be part of the structure." "Done." He nodded. One small, complete nod. Then, "I need to pick up Mia at 3. "That's fine," Renata said. He walked toward the bay door. Sal was there, 2 coffees in hand, holding one out without a word. Ethan took it. The sound of the Huracan's engine ran smooth and even behind them, exactly as it was built to run. Exactly as Ethan Cole had known it would run from the moment he looked at it through the bay window on the morning they told him to leave. Some things, once built correctly, do not forget what they were designed to do. Neither do the people who built them. That evening he came home at 5:30. Mia ran to the door and told him about her day in a single sentence that contained 4 unrelated events at high speed. He made dinner, he read to her, he sat beside her until her breathing slowed. Then he went to the kitchen and looked at the laminated badge for a long time. Not with pride, not with grief, with the quiet of a man who has set something down after carrying it a while, who has found, without ceremony, the shelf where it belongs. He put it back between the phone charger and the colored pencils. He went to bed. The next morning his alarm went off at 5:40. He was already awake.